Willie D Live.
Going in on Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. Man, this dude, man, they got a resurfaced video of Stallone glazing Donald Trump. I'm talking about his riding scrotum, just swinging from it like a tree, like taller in the jungle. Yeah, check it out.
Did Rocky, if you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus. It says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was going to happen. This man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations!
Without George Washington, what would the world look like? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, a better place? Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, without George Washington, the world would be a better place. Absolutely. George Washington exhibited racism through his own ownership of enslaved people and discriminatory views. He showed a complex and evolving perspective on slavery later in life. But make no mistake about it, he was an owner of human beings. He was a slave owner. He believed in discriminatory practices. He was a lifelong slave owner who profited from their labor and took steps to prevent their freedom, such as the slave shuffle to evade Pennsylvania's emancipation law. Despite this, he still was known as one of the founding fathers. Yeah. This guy was no better than the next guy. All of this, trying to take advantage of slavery and black people in life, and then when you get to the end, try to start acting like you have some type of heart, you have some type of empathy, you're a changed person. No, he was a deadbeat human being from day one till the day he died. George Washington was a POS. George Washington was trash. And this is why slavery was upheld. And it's always been like this, family. When you start talking about the people's resistance, the people can resist all they want. But it's those people that are in office who have the real power. They can push the agenda, they can push their narrative in any way that they want to, and they can get their constituents to get on board. So from Jump Street, there never needed to be a push for slavery. They did it because they were uncivilized. They did it because they were lazy. They did it because they were thieves and murderers and rapists. That's why they instituted slavery. That's why they upheld slavery. That's why your congressmen and women upheld slavery. That's why a lot of them owned slaves. That's why you couldn't get rid of it. That's why it lasted for so long. And that's why they don't want to pay reparations right now, because there are descendants of slave owners who are in Washington right now. And they're trying to hold on to that lie, that fantasy, that somehow, some way they got it out the mud. George Washington was trash, dumpster juice, straight up. There was nothing decent about him. So if Sylvester Stallone believes that Trump is the second coming of George Washington, ooh, that says a mouthful about what he really thinks of Trump. And if he really understands George Washington's life, if he understands his legacy, which he does, he already said, you know, I love the mythology. I love that. I love that. So he thinks that Trump is this mythical character. He understands because he did his research. That means he approves of the type of man that Trump is and the type of initiatives that he supports and he promotes. So that means that Sylvester Stallone is dumpster juice. That's right, I said it. Sylvester Stallone is trash, human waste. Rocky would have never. You know, I hear people saying all the time, that's why I don't ever want to meet my favorite celebrity. And I oftentimes will say, nah, man, life is short. Take a chance, man. You know, let them show their butt if that's what they want to do. Let them do that. But you be you. And if you have an opportunity to meet your favorite celebrity, you know, if they let you down, let it be. But that's on them, not on you. If I had a chance to meet somebody that I admired and I didn't hear a whole lot of bad things about this person, you know, prior, I would take the opportunity to meet that person. That's part of evolution. That's part of life. That's part of growth. You know, I would take the opportunity to meet that person. That's part of like experiences, right? That would be an experience. So it's either going to be a good experience or it's going to be a bad experience. If it's a good experience, that's even greater. If it turns out to be a bad experience, yeah, well, that's what it was. But that's on him, not me. I grew up listening to Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is, in my opinion, the greatest artist in the history of civilization, besides myself. Stevie Wonder is one of the greatest human beings. He has been a blessing to society. The amount of people he's touched, that he's given positive energy to, who he's helped in during tumultuous times, is immeasurable. So Stevie is the man to me. You can't tell me nothing bad about Stevie Wonder. When I had an opportunity to meet him, I didn't think twice. Now, I knew that he was a man. And even though I heard all of these songs, if you listen to them, Stevie sounds angelic. You know, he sounds like the second coming. He sounds like, you know, he got God's bat line. You know, he sound like him and God be talking all the time. Like, what's up, Steve? Hey, ain't nothing, man. How you doing? You know, he sound like he got a personal connect with God. You know, Stevie Wonder seemed like he visiting from heaven or something. You know, but I knew, being an artist, I've been around other artists. I know these are, at the end of the day, these are simply human beings. And incredibly gifted human beings, but human beings nonetheless. So when I met Stevie, and he was everything that I thought he was, as far as the way that he greeted me. You know, it's just, it made the whole experience even better. It made everything that I thought about him worthwhile.